Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 1. And we're going to get into a very important, meaty topic of mom guilt, which, it's honestly was like a big motivator for me starting the Mother Runner. So I'm Whitney Hines. I am a certified running coach. I founded the website, themotherrunners.com. I have 2 kids. And I live in a husband and 2 dogs, and I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. Olivia? Yeah. Do you want to tell us about yourself?
I'll go next.
We want to introduce ourselves so you know, because there's 4 voices on this podcast.
Yes.
So I'm Whitney. This is Olivia.
I'm Olivia, the one who keeps pausing forever. I live in Utah. I have my 2 kids that I stay at home to raise. And I also have a dog and a husband here. And I am. I just started my running journey about 5 years ago, so everything has just been learning little steps along the way. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think that this one, I think we widely cover as mothers in general, but especially as mother runners. And the reason that it falls into this running category is because running does take up quite a bit of our time, especially when we're training for these long distances. So I'm kind of excited to dive into this and kind of how we deal with it, where it pops up, and how, like a couple things of how to maybe overcome it too.
Yeah. Me too. Trisha, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm Trisha. I'm a mom of 3. I'm a physical therapist, prenatal postpartum coach, and exercise specialist. And yeah, I can't wait to dive into this because I feel like it's something that no matter how hard you work on and rationalize why you shouldn't feel it, all of us have it at one point or the other. And if we don't have it, then someone else on the internet will make us have it. So
Such a good point.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shanna Burchett. I also live in Utah. I do not like to claim it as my state, though. I grew up in California, so I don't know if I want to claim that either because they.
Well, I don't claim it either. I just live here.
I am a mom to 6 kids. I feel like I need like a special title, so I guess like I'm a professional butt wiper. I feel like I need something on like my resume on here, but my oldest is 8 and my youngest is 2, and so we're still in the diaper phase, unfortunately, but we are slowly getting out of it. But I'm
Can I
super
just
excited.
say that I think about you all the time
when you're wiping
sounds
butts
so weird.
That must be it. When she's wiping her own.
Whenever I'm doing like a little thing for the like packing the lunches or making the meals or laundry, dishwasher, school forms, like all that stuff, in my mind I'm always like, Shanna has to do this 3 times the amount that I'm doing it. Like it's just like
it's
all
so
those
wild
time
things,
too.
like they coalesce into taking up so much time. And but I'm like always thinking, I'm like, this is taking up so much time and it's stupid. It shouldn't be taken. And then I'm like, Shanna has to do this like 3 times. So sorry. I just had to say
no. It's wild because to me, I'm like, motherhood is busy, like regardless of how many children you have. And I say this to so many people, like they're like, how do you do it with 6? I'm like, how do you do it with 3 or 2 with a husband gone all the time? Like that is harder. Like, and so we all have our own hard, but I mean, I feel like the mom guilt is the perfect topic to start this whole podcast off of because we are all of us here are mothers. We are pursuing our own businesses or our own outside goals or whatever outside of our family. And that takes a lot of guilt to overcome, honestly. I know personally for me, like getting back into running in 2022, that was my biggest hiccup. The whole first year, honestly, I feel like it's gotten better as time has gone on. We got into a habit. But that first year, I would come home crying. Like I would have middle of the day, midday crying sessions in my car as I'm picking my kids up in the pickup line. And I'm just like, what am I doing to my family? What am I doing to my kids? And what am I doing to myself? Like, this is crazy. And so I'm excited to dive into this. I feel like this is going to be a great topic that so many of us resonate with.
So I want to ask you, Shanna, you have a very popular Instagram account And people see you, you're a mom of 6, and people see you like succeeding as a runner. Do you get pushback from people who are like, who's watching your kids, and how much time are you taking to run? Like, because I know, the rest of us probably get that too.
Yeah. I know we've all probably had those comments given to us. Absolutely. It's wild, some of the comments I read, it's like who's watching the kids, and I'm like, there's 2 parents under this roof. What are you talking about? And and we get the comments like, wow, that's a lot of time to spend on yourself,
Oh my gosh.
and that's so crazy to me, because I would feel like, any type of health in general is a good thing to invest in. Like, we have one body. We have literally one body that's going to raise those children the rest of their lives. And we're here to live too. We're not just here to survive. And I think that was my biggest shift in my motherhood, was realizing like motherhood was not meant to be survived. It was meant to thrive. It was meant to live. And bringing running back into the picture of that, to have something for myself, was truly a blessing. It flipped the motherhood script for me and made me realize, like, just because I was given all these children, it doesn't mean that God was saying, hey, let's put all your things on hold, all your personal things on hold, but hey, let's bring them together. Let's mesh them. Like, let's make this a family unit, a family thing. You cheer them on, they cheer you on. Like, that's the whole point, But yeah, it's unfortunate that we get those comments, and I know each and every one of us here are going to have to share some of these ridiculous comments that we've heard.
Oh, I just love the way that you said that. Like, we're not trying to survive motherhood. We want to thrive. Like, that's so true. And we have one body, and like exercise, like study after study shows that like exercise is like the one thing you can do to like optimize all aspects of your health. And so why wouldn't we want to be healthy and our best selves for our kids? Right. And like showing them too, that it's great to go after those big goals, but it's hard. I mean, that guilt is, it's always there. That voice is always talking.
It's so crazy how I think of, so when I was pregnant with my son, my husband and I, we made an agreement that, because he was getting really into pickleball at the time, and pickleball takes up 2 hours, pretty much on the dot, which is great, but that's a long time. And so I knew I was going to be having this baby, and that he was getting into this new sport and all these things. And so right off the bat, before I had the baby, we were like, we'll each give each other 2 hours a day, and which is a really generous amount of time, I think. Awesome. And, because I'm not going on 2-hour runs every day. And so I went out for my first run after having my baby, and I was feeling so guilty. And I just remember, I was like, this is crazy. And I always felt guilty for being gone. And it was unnecessary. And so like, I would lock in on that, and it helped with my running quite a bit, because I can like lock in on this thought of like, but why was I feeling so guilty for being gone? So I started switching it to the treadmill and only doing it during his nap time. And so then I became this nap time runner. Even if my husband was home, then I could go tend to the baby. It was like getting a little bit out of control. So once I was able to just step back outside of the house and like relinquish some control, because I had left a job. I loved being a paramedic. I absolutely loved it, but I just couldn't fathom being away from my son for so long. And so when I quit working, I felt like I had to give everything to my son. I had to be his everything. Mm-hmm. Nobody else took care of him. Like, it was me. Thing. Really? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I felt like, because now I'm a stay-at-home mom and also professional butt wiper or domestic engineer. How about that one? Yeah. That's what my husband calls me, and I'm like, thank you.
That's awesome.
And
I thought about that one.
You're just like, butt wiper. It's fine. It's the same. It's just worded nice. Yeah. Honestly, same. But I think that I just took on this role because I felt so guilty just all the time for all of it. I was loving being at home with my son. And so then when I did step away, I felt so bad. And then it bled into right when I had my daughter too, is I had signed up for Chicago in the lottery, and I got in, and I was so excited, and I started training. And then I realized Chicago was going to be when I was 6 months postpartum, and I was just not and she didn't take a bottle at all. And so we didn't
Same.
have a really. And
Yes.
so like it was so crazy. I would go out for these runs
So
and my
hard.
husband would bring my daughter, the baby, to me, which was wild to think about now. But like that was just how it was. She just never took a bottle. And so there was no game plan for the marathon. My mom was supposed to come to the hotel and then she was like, if she screams, you'll be back in what, 4 hours? And I was like, I don't know. And so
It's crazy.
I was doing all this marathon training and then I didn't end up running the marathon. I deferred. And like I still think about all that time I spent away from my daughter. And like she is a Velcro baby still. She loves her mom. Like it didn't traumatize her, but for some reason I think of it nonstop. And I was allowed to have that time. And so sometimes I think about like this 2 hour window that my husband and I gave each other, like 2 hours is nothing compared to the whole rest of the day, right? Like we have all these moments we can share with them. Like studies show if you just spend 15 minutes with your child one on one, that they'll benefit from that. And here I was feeling so guilty for stepping away for doing something for myself. And I still do all the time, even with it being in their narrative of like, mommy's going to go for a run, and like they love when I run on the treadmill. They think it's the greatest thing. And for some reason, I still feel guilty about doing it. It's completely inevitable. I don't know. It's like how we're wired.
I totally am. Your story mirrors mine so much. And
It's so crazy.
yeah, neither one of my kids took the bottle, but my daughter, like, I worked for the first year of her life, and the people at the daycare were like, we've never seen anything like it. Like, she will starve herself and wait for you. Like, we had like professionals come over to try to get, she's a redhead, so, she's feisty, but
So
she
cute.
just would like, so I felt, and like, she would wake up from I would go during nap time. She would wake up from her nap, like ballistic. And my husband, like every time my husband would call me, be like, you got to come back. She's hyperventilating. You got to come back. I'm like, oh my God. And I had already felt so guilty. And then that is like every run was just completely riddled with anxiety of like, what's going to happen? Is she going to wake up? And so, yeah. And then that's kind of morphed now. Like my kids are fine. My kids are 10 and 7, and they know that mommy's a runner and they're all about it. But now it's like kind of wife guilt of like, well, I want you to have your time too, because I really need this time to do my thing. And so like, if you're not taking your time, because I don't care what you do, if you're not taking your time, like, then I feel bad asking for my time, or I always feel bad no matter what, like inconveniencing other people, and it's like, it's hard to find that window even early in the morning, because like somebody's going to wake up, to not inconvenience. And then even if I do, then it's like, then I'm tired, and then I'm kind of cranky, and then, and it's just like hard to find like the perfect window. I don't know. And then I feel like society is just like, moms are supposed to be like completely selfless. So if they do anything for themselves, then it's bad and it's wrong, and it's taking away from your kids, when really it's like, just because you're depositing into your bank doesn't mean that you're taking that like money out from their banks, like in fact, it's quite the opposite.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it does, like it ebbs and flows depending on where you are and how old your kids are, because I feel like I went from a point where, and I still do, get up at ridiculously early hours of the day so I don't impact my kids as much. Inevitably somebody is up early.
Right.
But
and you just fold them into the workout so beautifully. We see it on your Instagram.
So crazy.
And that took a while to figure out, like, I can either fight this and resist it, or I can just rope them in and make them work out with me. And now, like Olivia and somebody had said earlier, it's like once they see that consistently, then it just becomes part of their life and they don't even question it. It's like, oh, mom's running, mom's sweating again. Like, this is just, this is normal. And then they like, my kids will always like be racing each other or like trying to out push up one another. It's like, you see how that just folds forward. But yeah, I think that like spousal guilt is huge too. And I feel like that's a big thing that I have dealt with for sure. And it's very important. I feel like, and Olivia, that's amazing that you two have agreed, like, hey, you get your 2 hours.
Yes.
I get mine.
I wish I would have done that.
Yeah, I think that is key,
Really smart
because
approach.
if you don't have that agreement, then there will inevitably be some, some feelings that are had.
Yeah.
I
um,
think
you
the feeling
alluding
is
to?
resentment,
Just-
right? Resentment
Resentment.
will be
Yes.
yeah.
Resentment, exactly. Yeah, and if it's not fair to either spouse, really, because if you're giving the other one shit for taking the time that they really need for themselves, then it makes it so much less enjoyable.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Right?
It's like, because then you don't know what you're walking into once you get back.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, exactly. And with the 2 hour thing, like, as it sounds like a perfect system, it's kind of just like something that we can use, like, well, hey, we did agree to this, because obviously, like, I don't go for 2 hour runs. And if I was to go for an hour long run and then sit on the curb, like, I would definitely hear about it. It would never be like, why weren't you, like, and all of my runs, to be honest, and I tell Shanna about this all the time, is I have to be back pretty much on the dot so that my husband can leave and actually have his 2 hours, because he plays pickleball, or if he's golfing, like, that all relies on other people, where my running
Right.
isn't necessarily, unless I have a planned run that I schedule like 5 days in advance. Like, hey, just remember, on Saturday I'm running for 2.5 hours, and so with that, I have to remember, like, that I can't have this much, I can't resent that he gets to go and do this all the time, because to him it's like, hey, I'm going to go play at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and it's like, I would have loved to run at 6 a.m. Like, was I even a consideration there? But he's like, well, can you go run on the treadmill at 5? Because he knows that I would only have 60 minutes to run. So there's always like these little things that you have to figure out. And because resentment, it will just slip in so fast. And especially when your partner has a hobby, or if he doesn't, then that's where the guilt comes in, because you're like
Yeah.
excited and loving things, and you like having all these like big goals, and you're like pumped about it, and you want to talk about it all the time, right? Like, and like being excited about something, and then when they don't have that, it's great. It is so crazy because you're like me, I'm like, hey, do you want to run a 5K?
Right.
And now he's training for a 5K, which is awesome.
Oh,
But it was like
cool.
literally this thing I had to, like, because otherwise it's just me talking about marathons absolutely nonstop,
See, but the antidote is listening to us talk, or
Yes,
having
I was
mother
just
run
about to say that.
friends who feel the same
Yes.
way,
Yes.
and then you can just talk about
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It actually, and studies do show that, like surrounding yourself with other women, like-minded women, it does really help with the mom guilt. But I think, like, your point, like, about the communication is it's so important, but it's still so hard, because it's like, how do I word this so that it doesn't trigger that reaction that I know it's going
which
to
is
trigger.
so odd, as the primary caretaker of your children, that you're asking permission to take time to yourself, because it's not like we're asking to go get massages every single day for an hour, which would be amazing.
That would
but
be amazing.
I know it's my massage hour. It's weird that we feel like we have to ask for permission to just go do something that we love, and that we could potentially pass on this passion to our kids, right? Like, and it's so strange to ever hear, like, well, I don't know if blah blah would let me do that, and it's like, you have to let yourself go do it. And that's like, I'm going to go run at 6 a.m. period. You know what I mean?
Not a question. I'm a
Yeah.
grown-ass woman, and this is what I'm doing.
Yes,
I feel
exactly.
like, too,
Respectfully.
Yes,
respectfully
I'm a
so.
grown-ass woman. Like, I'm an adult. I don't need to ask your
Maybe.
permission.
It's respectful.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have said, like, well, I did listen to the Book of Boundaries, which I think could be helpful if, like, this is hard, like, this is what I'm doing, and then it tells you like green, yellow, and red of, like, how willing are you to make a compromise if you want to
Cool.
run
That's
at 6
awesome.
a.m. but your partner wants to go play pickleball, then it's like, okay, then what are you okay with? Like, okay, are you okay running on the treadmill at 5 a.m.? Are you okay with changing your long run to the night. Like, I don't know. It's a pretty good. And then if you do really struggle with communication and it like just blowing up every time, then it's like, okay, I think talking to a therapist, a couples therapist would be worthwhile. And I know, sorry,
Right.
this kind of like more from like mom, because the mom guilt makes you feel guilty every time you go out the door, but it also like makes you feel guilty for that somebody else is having to watch your kids.
Right.
And
And
it's
that's
like,
what I feel like all of us have gotten that
Yeah.
at some point on social media, where you're putting that you're going out running in the dark, and people are like, well, where are your kids? Who's watching your kids?
Yeah.
Like thinking, okay, well, most of the time there is another adult that is fully capable. They're capable enough to bring them into this world. You sure hope they can watch them for an hour. Like,
Right.
but so then that guilt is thrown on you just from people you don't even know. Like, oh, how dare you try to, we're already sacrificing our sleep to get in the things that we love to do and run. Like, why do we need this extra guilt of taking care of ourselves,
Can I chime in? So I feel like sometimes we can put the guilt on ourselves too, that isn't actually there.
yeah,
I mean, Trisha, I think your situation is far different. So I want to be very cautious. Like, I understand that there is really good communication and the other partner just won't hear it. Right. And unfortunately, you have to figure out what's best for you at that point. With even therapy and all that stuff, like sometimes things are just unresolved. Exactly. And I mean, two people have to want to, like you said, Whitney, want to compromise and stuff like that. But I feel like for me, because I grew up with a mom with a dad who was deployed so often, and she literally did everything. Like, she did everything. She took us camping by herself, like every road trip.
You need to have her on, by the way.
She's amazing. And, everything
amazing.
that she has done has always been a solo mom. And so I grew up with that go-getter, like, I don't want to say feminism, but like that really like independent woman vibe and mentality. Like, that's the type of mom I'm gonna, and I really truly am for the most part. Like, I will take all 6 kids to the park or the splash pad for hours. Even my husband was working at home. Like, that's what I'm used to. And that doesn't faze me. But I feel like I put this unnecessary guilt on myself that my husband doesn't necessarily like feel. And I will, in my head, will create it into this situation where he's like, I don't feel bad. Like, I don't care if you go for your long run on Saturday. Like, that doesn't bother me. And I'm like, wait. Like, I thought it did, because I felt like I was taking so much time for myself when it really wasn't. But I feel like as moms, like you said, Whitney, we just expect ourselves to do everything. And I'm realizing the more and more, like, a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship is relying on your spouse and being vulnerable and being okay to rely on your spouse. And that's something that I've struggled with as a mom, is relying on my spouse. Like, he goes and picks up my kids from school and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing everything, so I'm failing as a mom. And I'm like, no, they need that relationship with him too. He needs to hear the fighting on the way home too. Like, it's good for them to have that memories with him. And yeah, so I think sometimes, like, for me, the mom guilt is a thing in my head that I sometimes make worse than it actually is in reality. And that's something that I have to work on, is like being okay with myself having that time, even with a supportive spouse.
There are like 3 things you said that resonated with me, especially like one, like there have been many times where I'm like, I feel guilty about this. And my husband has been like, what are you talking about? Like, it's totally fine. Like, not even like, that, not even on my radar. And like, that it is important for them to, like, your kids and their dad to like have that relationship and have that time, and like for you not to always be there, and like, and then I think also, like, we as moms, we put so much pressure on ourselves. We have so much on our plate, but then also I think as runners too, like, we tend to be perfectionists. And so we're like, we have to have control over everything. And we have to like be like badass at everything we do, and it's like, no, it's okay if somebody else is making breakfast in the morning and like,
And even for our kids too, it's like, it's good for them to have that separation from us from time to time. And like one of you said before, it's like, they're like, yes, I can watch TV or I can do what I want. My
Yes.
mom's not telling me what to do for an hour.
That was
It's
me.
like, I think
Yes.
we forget that, hey, maybe sometimes they don't want to be with us 24/7.
Yes.
Especially
Yeah.
when you start entering that preteen stage, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're not cool anyway.
Yeah.
And one
Yeah.
thing I heard, like, kind of to cap on Shanna, what you had said was like a phrase that I heard once was, you know, life and your goals don't end when motherhood begins.
Mhm.
And so even though we have this pressure, whether from society or that we put on ourselves, we have to also recognize that we're still a person. Just because we become a mom doesn't mean that we have to give everything up. I mean, we still have our passions and goals, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, totally.
That's probably one of the most important things to recognize is that we are still people. Like our spouses, when we became moms, like they did not lose their identity for the most part. You know, they're still the same person.
True.
And they don't feel defined by parenthood. Like they're excited to be dads, you know, but they're not defined by this. Like I said with my baby, like I needed to just like everything. Like if I miss him even getting a bottle, I was like, well, who gave it to him? Who made it? Like, and how long did you heat it up for? And, you know, I was obsessed. And it wasn't like I was concerned about how much he was eating. I just wanted to know who did it. And like, it was just like an obsession. And it was because I felt so bad that someone else was going to feed him. I felt so bad that I wasn't going to be the one that, you know, was providing for him in that moment, which is so silly to look back on because now there's 1,000 meals a day that I provide for him. You know, we have like 4 breakfasts by 10 o'clock. And you know, it is just like this, it's this guilt that we place on ourselves. And I have that talk with my husband all the time where I'm like, are you okay with me going out for 2 hours? And he's like, yes, I am very much fine with it. Because he also probably wants to have one-on-one time with our kids where it's not like me being like, hey, you should go out and play in the sandbox, you know? And not that I'm that bossy all the time, but I love throwing out suggestions. So it is just like this thing this pressure that we put on ourselves, and it's just not necessary, you know, because we are people. We're allowed to take time to ourselves, and like we're allowed to continue our passions. So and we're allowed to try new hobbies. Like it's not like, oh, because you know I'm a mom now, I'm not allowed to go try this new class. Like of course we're allowed to do that. That would be such a silly thing. Like I don't know. It's so strange sometimes to look back on certain times too when I've had guilt about something and it wasn't placed upon me. It was just something that I had internally. So, and I still feel it all the time even when I know that I don't really need to. But
yeah, and I think if you talk to a lot of older women who are now empty nesters, like they will, like I've had, you know, on my page, I have like the Why I Run, which runs on Wednesdays, and women share like the reasons why they run. And the older women, several of them have shared like how they've been so grateful for the community because once they're empty nesters, you know, it's easy to lose yourself in your kids. And now they have like they have running where they don't feel alone once their kids leave. And I think women who haven't had an identity outside of motherhood, they've really struggled once their kids have grown. Like, and of course you're always a mom, but obviously it's very different when they're not living in the house anymore. And so I think it is just so important that like we are multifaceted people. We are not just moms. It's okay to need your cup to be filled by something else other than wiping butts and making 1,000 breakfasts, you know, like,
yes,
obviously,
yeah.
like we
Amen.
love being a mom, like first and foremost, like it's, you know, like you asked me like, what do I want to like accomplish and be good at? And I'm like, I want to be the best mom for Cal and Eleanor. Like that is like the most important thing. But it's like, yeah. And I also want to do all these other things and have all, you know,
OTQ.
Like, yeah. No, for you. Yes. You know, but it's like, that's okay. Like we are not singular beings. Like we have needs and we have like wants and like different passions other than, you know, the domestic engineering duties.
I think also So true. I think a lot of it also comes from like the financial impact if you say you
Yes.
do hire a running coach, because I will say I did not have any mom guilt at all during my last training cycle. And my training cycle for grandmas, it went pretty smoothly. Like I did have to adjust every once in a while. And I remember I left a run one time with Shanna. We were doing like a midweek long run or something. And my husband called like twice and was like, Charlotte's throwing up. And I was like, I should probably head home. And he did not need me at home, but somehow I felt compelled to just go, like just in case, which is so silly because I could have finished. And, but anyways, I never felt guilty, but I was also self-coached. And so with this, it's like, so I got a coach 3 months ago. And I have like a new level of, I don't even know if it's guilt, but I feel like a pressure to perform or something. And it's so interesting that was like the thing that changed. It's like, I don't know why necessarily, because it's not like, oh, I'm taking all of my family's finances and dumping it into running. Like, you know, I picked a race that's not that far away. It won't be that expensive to fly to. But I think the financial impact, you're all of a sudden like, oh, I'm buying shoes, I'm signing up for races. And it's like, you kind of just feel a little like, just a little icky about it. And it's so silly because, you know, like in my relationship, like he has hobbies as well. And I don't think he feels that same guilt because it's never been really voiced to me. Like, you know, we'll have a New Balance package show up at the door and I'm like, oh, look at that. You ordered new shoes. And like, that's it. That was the end of it. Like, oh yeah, I saw this color I really liked. I needed new ones. Where for me, I'm like, hey, I'm going to need new shoes by November 28th, you know, and like, cause that's like a few weeks out from 10 days out from the race, you know? And it's so weird that I feel like this need to prepare everybody for when I need new shoes. And so that could just be something like personal to my family, but it was just this interesting shift that happened when I got a coach, and it was like all of a sudden I felt like I was just getting in more serious, you know? So
I think it's like it all ties back to feeling like you're worth it and you deserve it. And like Shanna and I, like a while back, had an Instagram conversation where I forget what we were talking about, but you said something where you were like, don't be afraid to take up space. And I was like, you're totally right. Like, so like we don't want our runs to impact other people, and we don't want like it to impact the finances. And it's like, we're just so afraid of like having needs or like, you know, impacting other people and and it's like, but it's okay. Like we can't just be like helping other people all the time. Like I don't know.
It's just a recipe for burnout.
So true. Yeah.
And I think with the mom guilt, like reframing things is helpful. Like if you reframe it in a way that it is helping other people, like if I feel like I'm training really well, or I'm set up for success for this marathon because I got these new Alpha Flies or whatever it is. So expensive though, but you know, I think you know, like think about like how that's going to make you feel. And again, like the ripple effect into your family, or like I'm taking 2 hours to go do my long run, but the kids and my husband get to go have like this special time together or whatever. Like it's like my kids now, they all go to Ace. Like my husband makes them breakfast and they go to Ace. Like, I don't know. Ace is the place to go. On a Sunday morning. But, like, you know,
it's like the hardware store.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know if it's just the hardware at the Ace in Knoxville, but it's got like super cute like gifts and it's got good food. And, like, so it's like that's like
I'd be going to Ace.
Right,
I'd be going to Ace too.
Ace is the place.
Post long run.
Yeah, it's not just to get like nails and a hammer or whatever.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's like they have this cute little routine that happens when I'm running, you know, and it's like
I love that.
Creating space for stuff like that to happen, and that otherwise, if you were there all the time, it wouldn't. So
I heard this quote the other day too. It was like somebody comparing it to a car. They're like, you'll take your car and you'll do all the maintenance. You'll do the oil changes. You'll change your tires. You'll rotate them. You'll clean it. You'll vacuum it. You'll do all this stuff for your car, but yet you won't do it for your own body. Like your one and only body. You won't give yourself time for your one and only body. And that like hit me so hard because I think as mothers, we are always pouring into other people. Like that is I feel like it's ingrained in every single one of us, like is to care for other people. But yet when it comes to ourselves, like sleep, like saying, hey, hon, I am sorry. I am so tired. I cannot do a movie tonight. I'm going to bed. Or, you know, whatever it may be, feeling right, like making sure that you're eating something wholesome for your body. Or like we talked about going for a run, like it goes back to that, like us feeling like we are not, like we don't deserve time for ourselves. We don't deserve space. Like,
or fancy shoes.
Yeah, that self-respect is so important as moms, like to give yourself the self-respect that you deserve that too, you know. We're not meant to just be little old rags thrown around. Like we have purposes here on this earth too. Like I don't know. I've really just I feel like my mom, she's so great and she's so incredible, but she was one of those moms that poured herself into her kids. Like I look back at all that she's done, and I mean, she had a paper route that we would go and run, and she would be sleep deprived and a solo parent, and still do the runarounds with the schools and everything. And you know, and I just look at where she's at now, and she kind of, I feel like she's trying to figure out who she is, you know. And as a mom, I realize like I want my kids to see themselves in motherhood too. Like I want them to walk away knowing that their kids were their world, but it wasn't their only world, you know, that it was part of their world. And yeah, I feel like as moms, like we really need to start believing that like our kids don't need to be our only thing in life, you know.
It's a lot of pressure on them too.
Yeah,
totally.
It's like so important to try to break that cycle of think about how awful that is. It's like your kids look to you and you're like, I can't do anything because I'm taking care of you. Yeah, it's like
that's so true.
So
that's
much
such a good point,
built on them, really.
Yeah, I feel like it's a generational unraveling. It's like each generation of moms is like starting to move away from that they're not.
Yeah, it is. And Shannon, so I'm the oldest of 7. And so, and my mom,
you have
my
a different
dad,
perspective.
Yes, because you're at the bottom.
You're the second mom.
Yeah. Yes. Like I was changing diapers when I was 6, and my dad also traveled a ton. So I saw the same with my mom. I mean, she even did daycare in the house for a couple extra kids because 7 wasn't enough, I guess. So yeah, it's interesting to have grown up in that environment and have seen that, like just from our own moms who are juggling so much. I think, we learn a lot from being in a big family.
And it's and just to like bring it back, it's you learned a lot from watching your moms and kind of like, you know, I like that, but I also don't want that for myself. And like, that's what our kids are doing, you know, they're watching us, they're watching us go after our goals and taking care of ourselves and being healthy and being able to like, you know, go down the big water slide and play on the monkey bar, you know, like they're watching us be able to do that. And
they watch everything that we do, everything, you know, good or bad.
Take some of it and you know, they may be like, why would anybody ever want to train for a marathon or an ultra? Like, I don't get it. Like,
my mom came back and has scrapes all on her legs and
well, awesome. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much, guys, for being open and honest. And I am so excited about what we're going to talk about next, because I think the opportunities for conversations are endless.
Yes, that too. Thank you, guys. I just want to quickly end it on a positive note, though, like, because I think we're kind of like, you know, we can talk about mom guilt a lot, but I think if you just constantly remind yourself of that, it's that cliche saying of you can't pour from an empty cup. I think I can't tell you how many times I tell myself that just during the week for anything. And if anybody can take that away and just continuously remind yourself that you are important too. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And we have all proved it time and time again. And so just a quick reminder, it's such a short little sentence and it's a great mantra to just run through your head throughout the day. Doesn't even have to be on a run, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. I remind myself of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Just
have to.
little positive affirmation. I love it.
You can put it on your phone as like a reminder too if you need to.
Yes. Yeah. That's so
All right.
true.
Well, thank you, ladies. I hope you have a good rest of the
Thank
day.
you.